Let's do our own version of that, which is our Go F1 show performance chart, where we compare the starting positions and finishing positions. It's only one metric, of course, ladies and gentlemen, but one of the things we can see there is, first of all, Fernando Alonso dropping down. He's the only person in red in the top 10, lost 7 places from his starting position. But the two people outstanding, unsurprisingly, Charles Leclerc, having started 19th, gained 14 points. And the other person we're going to talk about a little bit is Lance Stroll. Let's talk about Charles Leclerc first. Alex started 19th, finished 5th, but he did lose 15 points to Verstappen. What did you think about his performance on the weekend for him?
Yeah, good performance, but I expect nothing less from Leclerc. I expect him to come from the back to go to the top 5. I was surprised by the performance of the Ferrari. One of the big strengths about the Ferrari has been its traction out of slow corners. And you could hear in the race that Leclerc was complaining about the diff or something. Maybe that was affecting his traction out of the slow corners. But Sainz also didn't look brilliant out of the slow corners. And that's been a Ferrari strength this year. That's why they dominated Australia. And that's why, other tracks like Bahrain and Saudi Arabia and Sector 1, they've been so good. But I was mystified at why they look so poor out of the slow corners, especially when Leclerc was trying to overtake Bottas. Bottas looked really good out of the slow corners. And, he's got a Ferrari power unit. So we know that that's where the Ferrari is really good, at the bottom end. But, I was a bit surprised. I wonder, I'm not 100% sure Ferrari might have got the setup right on the day. Here he is talking about how frustrating it was. They were very much focusing on straight line speed, trying to cut that straight line speed deficit to Red Bull, and I think they made progress on that. But they must remember that they have got strengths that work really well, and one of them is that slow speed traction, bottom end power of that power unit. Didn't seem to have it on the day.
I was surprised, Bob, that they went with what I'd call a kind of defensive strategy in a way, starting on the hard tyre, which kind of locked them into having to go long, didn't it? Obviously, starting on the hard tyre, because they only need, in a race that was possibly 1 and maybe 2 stops. Did you think the same thing? Were you surprised they didn't go more aggressive with him, stick him on mediums at the start, or even softs?
Yeah, nobody went softs at all, did they? And Mario Isola said the reason for that was because it was still a green track after the rain from the previous day, and it really wasn't worth risking the soft compound tyre. So everyone went either medium or hards, and everyone, the strategy initially was a one-stop strategy. Of course, then there were the 2 virtual safety cars and the safety car at the end as well. So that sort of changed the whole strategy anyway. But I think you're right. Perhaps a medium would have been a more logical choice right at the start. But as you say, they went on the hard compound. And of course, the track changed. As Alex was saying, it was going to grip up inevitably because it was so green to begin with, having rained the previous day so much. So it was inevitably going to get more grip. But strategy does perhaps seem to be a little bit the weak point at the moment when it comes to Ferrari. And we've seen, for the last couple of Grand Prix, we've seen that.
Well, the past couple of decades, probably, other than the Schumacher years. But anyway, I shouldn't. But I say that because he started on the hards, and of course he was locked into going long, and he got stuck in a DRS train, and then he got stuck behind Ocon, and then he did finally make his pit stop, having kind of got to a point where they thought they could drop him back into some clear air, and then they managed to fumble the pit stop. And of course, not only does that, but it was frustrating watching it and to be the driver in the car, and then he came out back behind in traffic again. So he put a good face on it. But the reason we're talking about Leclerc so much is that, of course, he's the person we consider to be the key championship challenger to Red Bull's Max Verstappen. We put together a couple of things to show you, ladies and gentlemen. One is a chart, because his season looks so strong. Let's take a look at it. His season looks so strong, where he had a win, a second place, and a win. Let's start off actually with the chart first of all, which shows the results of the first 9 races. This is it here. There you go. You can see that Leclerc second first with fastest laps when he won the Grand Prix, and Max DNF'd in those 2. And as you can see, then basically Max has gone on to win 5 of the following 6 races and ended up with 175 points over Charles' 126. Now let's look at the graph, which I know is an Alex Young strong point. So Alex, you can talk about this nice graph here.
Yeah, and you have to say it's Ferrari dropping the ball. I mean, I did say at the beginning of the season that if we go by what Ferrari's weaknesses. They tend to make mistakes about halfway through the season or 3/5 of the way through the season. It seems to be happening even earlier this time. Okay, yes, the reliability issues, the engines letting go was a shame, but I don't really want to focus too much on the engine because Red Bull also lost 2 engines, so that's just part and parcel of the motorsport. Sometimes through the season you have these reliability issues, but it's more the operational mistakes that we worry about. The fumbled pit stops, going for the wrong strategy. And, we've talked about this before, that the pressure in Ferrari is such that everything gets analyzed, that people tend to start fearing about making mistakes then instead of making the right decisions. And it's really hard to get that flow just right. And it's something Schumacher and Ross Brawn and Rory Bryan and Nigel Steffney also talked about in the Ferrari years. John Todd's chief role was protecting them from that pressure. And you have to say in the Schumacher years, when they won 5 world titles on the trot, and even when the car wasn't the fastest, they would always get the strategy right. That was a special period, and that period you'd say carried on to even Kimi Räikkönen, winning his world championship a few years after that. But it seems to have got back to the old stage where there's a lot of pressure, and the operationally they're not as sound as the other teams. Obviously, the team still has a lot of talent. They're building great cars, so they obviously got some talent in the factory, making these designs and building the cars. But at the track, I think we need someone there to protect them so that they have the freedom to push for the right mistake instead of worrying about the wrong mistake.
Well, so 54 points was Charles' advantage at the Australian Grand Prix. Is 49 points behind now at round 9. Bob, can you put your finger on what's the problem?
It's difficult to say, isn't it? I mean, I think Alex is absolutely right. The pressure in Italy, everyone knows about this pressure that Ferrari have from the Italian media, from everybody else. It's a national team. The media in Italy is huge. And you just all the time they will be worrying about getting it wrong and not, as you say, getting it right, working on getting it right. I think it's absolutely a very valid way of looking at it. And so they've really got to have the confidence to go for it and to get everything correct, all the ducks in a row, as it were, and to get everything right. They've got, obviously, they had the fastest car in Montreal, that's for sure, even though it was only maybe 3-4 tenths quicker, which wasn't enough for Sainz to get past Verstappen. But they have got the fastest car. They did have the fastest car there. Whether they will in the more conventional tracks coming up, the next 4 circuits before the summer break, that'll be interesting to see. And that's something they've really got to work on to hit the ground running at the first of these next 2 double headers. We've got 2 double headers coming up. The other side of the summer break, we've got a triple header before they go off to Japan, Singapore and Japan. So it's really, really tough at the moment for all the teams. It's not just Ferrari. But it'll be very interesting to see what they can do when we start the more conventional circuits coming up.